The Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast is dedicated to all things Horus Heresy. This podcast delves into the grimdark universe where Primarchs clash, legions rise, and loyalties fracture faster than a Land Raider's track. But it's not just about the lore of the Horus Heresy. The Accountabilibuddies also explore the gaming side of things, from painting and modeling tips to product reviews and ideas to help you in your hobby. So, whether you're a seasoned Forge World veteran or a fresh-faced scout, this podcast is your Vox channel to the galaxy. Expect discussions on lore, modeling, gaming, and maybe even the shenanigans that your hosts somehow seem to find their way into. Remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, there are only two things you can count on: Heresy and your trusty Accountabilibuddies.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the 110th episode of the Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast. My name is John, and I'm joined by
Duncan,
Jack,
and Jamie.
And tonight on this episode, we're going to do our usual stuff as our first episode of 2025. And hope everyone had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we can get into keeping everybody accountable as we go forward into this new year. Before I go into news and everything else, I'm going to kick it over to our sponsors real quick.
Do you love resin bases? Then go to our sponsor, Elric Hobbies, for all of your basing and basing accessory needs. Use code HERESYABB at checkout for a discount. Legendary Monument Hobbies. Monument Hobbies is a one-stop shop for all of your painting needs. Use code HERESYABB at checkout for a 5% discount on your purchase. Pop Goes the Monkey. Find maker of third-party accessory bits of arms, legs, backpacks, and more, where you can get 10% off your first order over $125 with code HERESYABB at checkout.
We love our sponsors.
I guess to kick us off first, I'll go through hobby progress. I honestly have gotten a little bit done this week. Kind of smoked a brisket after our last during our last recording, so I've been munching on that and working on some of the last pieces of the terrain for the memorial park and things. So I was able to finish off the play place square. This is a kind of a 1x1 square that just goes through and like we were talking last time, I kind of envisioned it being a bunch of different vehicles you could crawl over and slide down. And so I've got a slide built off the front of the Land Raider. I've got a bunch of other stuff kind of hooked together during our midweek hobby hangout. I was able to go through and build some of the backing boards for our Adepticon Secret Squirrel project. And so that'll be ready to go next. I was also able to get a bunch of stuff primed. So I have all of the Charonite Ogrins not primed yet, but I got all of the Velatari primed. I got the what was else that was in that box? Well, there was a bunch of other kind of random Cobra figures that I'd picked up through the years that had got primed, and I got some of my Black Friday orders in. So, does anyone remember the old Blanche painting that was on the cover of Titanicus, which was the Imperator versus the Mega Stompa?
Yes, that was actually on the original Epic, I believe, the box set.
Yeah, and it was also on Final Liberation, which is where I saw it. Display did that as a gigantic, like 18 by 24 textured metal art print.
Oh wow!
And I had to pick that up. It's like $100, but it's cheaper than buying actual art. And so I'm looking for a spot to find where that's gonna hang, because that's like one of my original pieces. And so all the Imperators, even the ones that are kind of in the background shadows, are done with a nice texture print, and so it catches the light just right. Yeah, it's a really cool piece that I've always kind of enjoyed looking at, and now to have it in my house is really nice. I mentioned last time that I finished up the bases for the Charonite, so I just need to get them finished. Started assembling those guys, and I found out that my arms that I was originally going to use for them weren't quite right, so I found some online that I ordered. And that's really been it. I haven't gotten a ton done this week, other than I was also doing some planning for the 2x2 square. I got some picked up a couple big pieces of pink foam that I'm going to be cutting up this week. I got a friend coming over. He was supposed to come over today, but it turns out he's going to reschedule for Monday. Had some family stuff come up. That we're going to cut the 1x1 pieces to raise all of the Memorial Garden pieces, and then the 2x2 piece to do the center section. I've got some pieces that I got from Will that I'm going to use kind of as the basis, and then cut what's left over of the big pieces into kind of the spacers. And so New Year's we had Lucas invited me out. We went to the local game shop where we usually do our Heresy events. It's a big board game place, and we played a couple board games. And during downtime, during that, I sketched out the design for the middle 2x2 square. It's going to use up the Horus bookmark or bookends that I've got, as well as some of the Cromlech mechanical saint figures, a Forged World 15-year memorial. So if you work at GW for 15 years back in the day, they used to send you a giant Forged World Space Marine that was cast in a bronze resin. And so that's going to be on this thing, as well as some other stuff I've got. So that's kind of been planned out, and I'm going to start laying out how that looks this week. And that's really been it for me. What about Jamie?
So this week it's been a little weird, but I've been straightening up my hobby table work area and had to clear it all out and reorganize it, and found all kinds of stuff and organized all these bits and pieces. And then I've been painting. Actually, I've been painting an Irredemptor squad, and it's a little slow going, a lot of layers. Probably should have picked something a little easier to start out with, but that, and then I've base coated 2 dreadnoughts, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next paint wise. And then I started building a new PC, or kind of swapping over to a newer PC case. Should help things out on my side a bit. I don't think there's anything else hobby wise that I've done. Played Space Marine 2 a bit. Trying to get the chainsword, the special chainsword, which I think I'm only one mission away for it. But other than that, yeah, that's pretty much it. How about Jack?
I have been working on Stormbird transportation. I actually just now posted in the group pictures of the work in progress. Everything is roughed in. The bird is securely foamed in. I even bought like a little buckle system, so that way it wouldn't bounce up and down, because it's a lot of mass in that thing.
Oh yeah.
So I have that done. Just looking at the pictures as I posted them, I think I want to go back now with maybe some black or gray microfiber cloth and kind of make it look a little bit nicer in there. But I can wait until I get closer to being done with it. I have to put in a top shelf on it above the Stormbird. That way I can fit more stuff in there. I have some form coming for a Thunderhawk I'll put in that same case. And I think I may try to get it where that's just where majority of my super heavies live now. Just to make life easy. Like break in case of apocalypse box, which
You know the secret, Jack. Every time you buckle it in, you got to snap it a couple times and say that's going to hold.
That's going to hold.
Yeah. Well, I petted it and said that's my baby.
That fits so much.
Duncan gets the ride in the back end of the pickup truck while it gets the ride.
You probably did more work on you probably took more time working on that than you did on your kids. Not going to lie.
Well, first off, were you in my bedroom? Second off, Duncan, what have you been up to?
Oh, let me see here. This week I got another pile of 10 Rampagers, up to the point where I'm going to have to put the final seal on them, and I'm going to have to... Sorry, their shoulders, backpacks, all the base paint layers are done. I'm going to have to spray seal them. I'll get that done either tonight or tomorrow. And then I'm going to have to put the decals down, put the next seal down, wash them with the effects that I wash them with, and then clean that up, put the final seal on, and be done with that squad. Right now, I have one last squad that needs to be done that same way. That squad is waiting on 20 shoulder pads who somewhere mysteriously arrived from Jack's house. I did not unfortunately get a chance to go over there and get that from him this week because life sucks sometimes. But it's okay. I
They're
will
still
get
here for
them
you,
from
buddy.
him. I appreciate that, sir. I will get them from him sometime. I'm not quite certain how soon that sometime will be, but because we're facing Snowmageddon, apparently, according to the governor, I don't know. It's kind of why we're recording tonight on Saturday. So yeah, hopefully I'll have this squad and the other squad both to the exact same position by Hobby Hangout Wednesday. Then go from there. I have also, and I stress this word also, spent time playing the Christmas gift that I got, which was Return to Moria on Xbox. And I've been playing a lot of that because it's fun. You're a dwarf and you're digging around in Moria, trying to reclaim it. So it's been fun. It's kind of like Valheim, except I've never played Valheim, so I'm not quite certain what the differences would be. So, but it's fun for me. I like it. And that's about it at this point. So back to John with the news.
John?
John.
Yep, it was muted apparently. So because we're recording on Saturday, we don't have our usual what's coming up for pre-order next Saturday article up, but we do have some things that came out from GW. So let's start with the big thing first. New Year's Day we got, or was it Christmas? We got Fulgrim.
Yeah, I think it was Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Christmas. So we got Fulgrim.
Okay, so what do
Just
we
in
think?
time for Slaneschmas.
Yeah, just in time to start the new year of the snake off with the what
Snakiest
they call
Primarch
the
ever.
Thank you, Primarch.
yeah. Well, Slanuki is what the middle of his snake body is called, I guess. I don't.
Look,
Zoomer is fucking weird.
who
I'm
knows?
going to say that. If you want to play 30K, I'm not going to turn someone away that's using that as Fulgrim Transfigured or whatever he's called, Resplendent or fucking weird. But it's definitely a cheaper way to be able to, and an easier model to move than the giant
hold
frozen
on.
Fulgrim will be.
You say cheaper is not going to be cheap from the reports.
Oh, it's not going to be cheap. It's going to be cheaper.
Like 180, it's 180 pounds, which will probably be like $250.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be an expensive beast. That said, I appreciate what they've done where they're putting him out in plastic because the other one got a lot of fiddly bits and
It does?
spindly.
Yeah.
And is likely in some ways to maybe, fail and break. So I'm not going to complain about the way this one is built.
Yeah, the faces are about the only thing, and a lot of it is very obviously CAD. I don't think they filled a lot of the gaps that are in the model, right? Or just something they might have been the pre-production model that they needed to get painted up. But the faces to me are probably the worst part of it. If we didn't get Fulgrim Resplendent or whatever first, I think most people would probably consider this a knockout, a good model. But because we got that, it's an okay to meh model.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's nothing really wrong with the new one, the plastic one, other than like the heads. Is that like I just don't like any of them. I think they're kind of really written in. They're not. It
So
didn't seem like
are you talking the head or the face?
the face.
So I actually really prefer the face on the resin one. The faces on this one look, well, frankly looks constipated.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like these at all compared to the resin one.
No, I get where you're coming from there.
As John said, there's definitely CAD work on it. So I mean, like but that's nothing new. GW does a lot of their models in CAD anyways at this point, and as most people do. But like, there's just certain style elements that are I don't know how to put it. It's kind of like, I call it 40K cartoony. Is basically what I call it.
You're
It's
not
different.
really wrong. It is a bit that way.
It's a different style compared to what you normally would see in Heresy models. Heresy models are more worn, seem to be like more worn down and gruff and a matter of fact, whereas there's like a kind of a, it's just hard to explain, but a cartoon, and I've taken a lot of art classes. It's like a cartoony style that is only in 40K compared to like the more, I don't know, stoic, more rough, real life worn 30K style, and
It just doesn't feel the same.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. If this model came out first, I think I would have no problems with it. But like, to me, it's like, I'm not gonna say it's the Temu knockoff of Fulgrim, but that's kind of,
it's a lot softer in a lot of areas, which is kind of lends to that cadness feeling of it. It feels more toyetic in a way.
Yeah, it's just I don't think it's as good as the resin one, and I totally agree. The resin one is like crazy. It's if you've ever seen it in person, painted by somebody that knows what they're doing, it's an incredible model. It's like jaw dropping. The problem is, try and transport that to any place, because it is an absolutely gargantuan model, and there's tons and tons of little fidgety, breakable, very easily breakable parts. I mean, you almost have to have like a wood case, like that, that the legit hardcore Golden Demon painters use to transport it. I mean, that's the biggest issue with the resin model. Like, is just it's basically a display piece. Like, it's almost next to impossible to use like safely on a game table.
I would not want to roll dice around it.
Yeah, I'd be very scared. If it was not mine, I'd be very scared to bump into it or knock it over on the table and everything. Whereas this one, not saying that, even with its gargantuan price, the rumored price for it, for a plastic model, I'm not as scared about damaging it compared to the resin Heresy one. And I really wouldn't have too much of a problem with someone using that instead of the resin one. But it just doesn't have that Heresy style to it. I mean, like, if you look at it closely enough between the two of them, you can definitely tell that there's some differences, but there's a lot of similarities too. And I really don't have an issue with it. It's just, it doesn't, I mean, it's kind of like a lot of the demons for 40K. They're kind of cartoony. I just don't know how else to put it, versus like a lot of the older demons that have made it into like Heresy, or some of the Forge World demons. There's a different artistic style to it, and so I mean, it kind of I guess you might be able to do something with the paint, the colors you use, and stuff like that, but like, it might stick out a little bit. I mean, like, I know it's gonna stick out as Fulgrim, okay, but it's gonna kind of like style-wise stick out maybe from the rest of your army. That would be my only concern, is like, if you've got a lot, like a Slaanesh demon army, they may not match. You know what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying, style-wise?
I get what you're saying, yeah. I think we all kind of get that.
I guess I'm just being a little bit too overly concerned. I mean, there's not really there's not a problem. It's an incredible model. I think it's a lot better than Angron for the 40K Angron model for sure.
Oh yeah, by far.
So I didn't have Magnus. I thought was pretty good. Typhon. I mean, it's Typhon. I mean, like, you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, that's definitely, or not Typhon.
Mortarion.
Mortarion. Sorry, but yeah, I mean, it's a very impressive model, none the least.
Yep. And then moving on from that, we had the official release of the Primark collection of art prints dropped today. I was driving and I just kind of placed the order as I was not doing anything illegal, and I really didn't notice that what the price was until I kind of got the text message afterwards. And it was 20 art prints that are A3 size, so they're pretty big. I'm not gonna lie, they're 420 by 297 millimeters, which equates to about 11 by 16 US size Freedom units. And you've got a print of the Emperor and all of the Primarchs. You only get Altharius, you don't get Omegon. And these are all the Primarchs that are kind of in before they've joined the Imperium prints. I think they're going to be neat, but the biggest downside to me was the $140 price tag for 20 art prints. Every year for Christmas, CW has done these little advent calendars. Well, every year for the past, I want to say 5 years, CW has done these little advent calendars where they do book covers as advent calendars, and they're usually about $100. And even at that, I was usually like, that's kind of expensive because they were very scattershot. So you'd get like 2 Age of Sigmar, 240K, 1 Heresy, and then some other ones. And they never sold them separately. And they would never sell, honestly. What would happen is they'd bulk ship them to GW stores and break them apart and give them away as prizes. I know this because the Citadel ended up with 2 pallets of them in the past, where they were trying to give them away with every $100 purchase. And it just, because they were so scattershot, they started adding like special effects to them. One year they were all glossy, next year they were all chrome. The year after that, they were designed like 1950s movie posters. It was really odd what they were trying to do there. And this year I noticed they skipped it. And so then they came out with this Primark art set. So it'll be definitely interesting to see if this sells better. With the price tag, I could see people going together and buying it and then splitting it up. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this. What do y'all thought on this one?
I'm not sold on the price tag. While I would love to have each and every single one of those art prints for myself to keep for myself, I'm really not willing to shell out that much at this point. But that's also kind of just me. So, do I see other people splitting it like you said? Yeah, I could see that. Sorry,
these were honestly some of my favorite pictures of the Primarchs. The problem was they were always in the novels that were small print. And so we've never seen these pictures big up. And I don't think we've ever seen the Emperor that came out of this either.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think he was in the books. You got 2 or 3 per Age of Terror book set.
Yeah.
And 2 gives you 20, which is what we got here. So maybe he was in there and I just missed it when I was reading them. But I don't remember ever seeing him. I remember seeing Horus and Korax and Dorn and Lion, but I don't remember ever seeing the Emperor. So, and they don't show him in the pictures of the art prints. They just show the stacks of the ones that came out. You can see Fulgrim kind of hanging out in the background because he's really creepy looking in these art prints. He's almost like stepping out of his robes, and he's really pale against a really dark background. Yeah, it'll be kind of interesting to see what these look like.
And these are like, they're not in their armor. It's like them, I'm not going to say chillaxing, but it's like, portraits at rest.
Yeah, I thought it was like before they joined the Imperium, but they're not really that either. They're like you said, they're kind of like off duty almost.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. I'm looking at a couple of them right now. And yeah, Vulcan's like him kind of standing over like a cauldron forging something. And Calgar's just, or not Calgar. Roboti is like got a cloak on. Huh?
Typing in Microsoft Excel.
Yeah, typing in Excel. No, he's kind of like him standing in a Roman hallway with a cloak on, but he's wearing like a short sleeve tunic with like gauntlets, and then like
Dorn's wearing a puffed up collared shirt.
Yeah, and like Lion's got it's like a V-neck tunic or something like that, carrying his helmet or something weird.
Yeah. They're all very different.
There's some of these they actually, just bear with me for a second. they actually kind of look like character portraits that they have for notable BattleTech drivers in BattleTech.
Yeah, or like kind of like the art prints we see of generals when they go off to war.
Yeah,
Like those prints of like this is what they look like outside of the battlefield type of thing. Which I like when they do that a lot in 40K and 30K, where you kind of see that in-universe stuff.
yeah.
And we got the uplifting primer and things like that. This is, like I said, these are neat. I liked them. It's just that price point's going to make me probably want to sell the rest of these to locals.
And like Horse is that one's. At first, I thought it was the Khan, but then I was like, no, that's Horus. It kind of doesn't really look
Is he
like
sitting there in his white armor?
Yeah, it's
No,
like
well, he's got like a white belt and he's got a wolf
A
draped
wolf.
over his shoulders.
Yep. That's and he's kind of smiling.
Yep.
Kind of looks like
It's weird.
a picture in your head of that meme guy smiling, bald, kind of bulked up with a cigarette in his mouth or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like he's got like a white stubble beard too.
Yep, that's the barbarian version or kind of pre-heresy version of Horus.
So like
Or
it looks like each one of them's
Luna
in
Wolf
like
version.
its own like slip cover too.
Yep. Yeah, that's what they've done with the past too. Each one of them is in a little slip case. That way they don't stick together when they're shipping them if something gets damp or something. You don't ruin all of them at once.
I mean, it looks like they went, it's a leather bound case that they all come in and stuff. But yeah, that the price point's a bit excessive, even for like GW stuff. So, and I mean, I have prints, and I know you all do too. But like this just seems like really high.
Yeah, for that price, I mean, like I was saying earlier, I got that big disc plate art print for less than this.
Yeah.
Admittedly, that's one art print versus 20. But again, am I going to use all 20? No, I'm looking at maybe 4. Depends on how good they are.
For non-US people, they're 420 by 279 millimeters. So like
A3.
A3, yeah.
Which ironically makes it easier to shop at IKEA.
Okay.
Moving on from there into the not so GW stuff. Starforge came out with a few releases so far. The first is the Space Wolf Fang of Fenris pendant. So this is a little wolf tooth or faux wolf tooth in a brass sheath. On one side is a full kind of lively wolf with his mouth agape, and then on the back side of that is a wolf skeleton. It kind of shows you the dualities of the world. It's a neat little pendant. It's only $55, which is a lot cheaper than most of the Starforge things we see in the marketplace. So not that terrible. The other thing that came out, do you guys remember, I want to say last month or month before, when I talked about the $1,000 free models or free items they were selling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the first release in the $1,000 free thing. It is honestly, it looks to be solid gold Aquila pen. And it's $1,000 on their website right now, but they say at the bottom, if you bought that previous release, you get this for free.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah, I hope they sell this thing separately because it is beautiful. I placed a picture of it in our chat. It's sculpted to look like a real eagle, but in the 40K Aquila pose.
Well, there was one
kinda
other
interesting.
GW thing. There's one other GW thing that we got this week on Thursday.
What's that?
The Overseer, the Trader Overseer.
Oh yeah, the guy that's sad he doesn't have a beaky helmet.
Yeah,
We got the Trader Overseer this week because we got the Loyalist Overseer last week. He comes with an actual whip to drive people on, a snarling demon helm, and
it's like almost like a Japanese style
Oni mask, and then a pointing hand. Again, like we said before, this model is beautifully generic. It doesn't have anything on there that screams any Legion. It doesn't have anything on there really that screams traitor other than the skull and the kind of chainmail and the weird Oni mask.
Oh yeah.
The unhelmeted head is a scarred Space Marine that looks like he's seen a lot of battle. The armor looks very Mark V, where it's got like a Mark VI chest plate, but it's beefed up under the cables.
Yeah.
And the legs are almost Mark II with the lower greaves, and then the upper greaves are Mark IV looking. It is a beautiful model.
I'm not sure if the sigils that are on him are etched in the armor or not, though, on the legs.
That's got to be painted because there's gaps in between the pieces. It's either decals or paint.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing on there that just screams that it has to be, unless there's the right pad, which you don't really get a good full look at.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, it's definitely Trader Legion. It kind of
Yeah, I like the studs are sharpened.
Yeah.
They look like points. Cromlech has been making pads like that for a while, and I bought them for my Devastators.
Yeah, they're not rounded like the normal studded pads they're rounded, and these are like trapezoidal or like the edge, like half a square basically. They're pointed and
Yeah, like
edged.
little pyramids.
And yeah, the backpack I will say is Mark 6E, but it's kind of Mark 5E armor. It's like a hybrid armor almost. So yeah, it's a good model, and also people really like the whip.
Yeah, it's individually sculpted pieces, so it's not. So a lot of the whips they've sculpted before have. This has 3 pieces that go kind of together. Where if you look at a lot of the sculptors before, they really kind of combine on themselves to make it a lot less breakable. This one, he's kind of got it pulled back, doubled over on itself, so it takes up a lot less space on the model, but it separates below that.
To be honest, it's kind of like a cat and mouse.
Yeah. Yeah,
Not really know what that is, but
I've been to medieval torture museums. They've had them in medieval times. But the other whips that GW has sculpted in the past for like Esters and things like that, usually those are the ones that people steal for models like this, and they're usually way too thick or way too gangly. This one looks very thin.
Yeah. But yay, Heresy Thursday.
Yeah. We got a Heresy Thursday to start the new year, as well as a nice model. I hope we get some release dates for these guys soonish, because I would like to start making stuff out of them before my buddy gets to yelling at me too much for needing to paint Empire for old world stuff.
And I think we've already talked about the Loyalist one, but they both, like the Loyalist one, you definitely could make a chaplain out of easily, like no problems asked. And this one, you could
Dark
kind
Apostle.
of make it. Yeah, you can make it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of convertibility in both these models, so.
That is all of our news, gentlemen.
That was a pretty hefty bit right there. Kind of some good stuff that we kind of like.
Yep.
Well, the real question I think at this point comes to, what's the topic of tonight, gentlemen, other than the incoming year and what all we're going to deal with this year? No suggestions? Fine. We'll go with my suggestion then, which is kind of what we'd already planned on doing. So, we think Heresy is a wonderful game. As a whole, I'm pretty sure every single one of us here loves Heresy. So, new year. Here's a new to Heresy. Kind of why we think players who are new to the game or are just approaching the game, wondering what's about, why we think they should pick Heresy compared to other GW games, or even other games that we're not going to name specifically unless we really feel we need to, for an entry point, and why we think they would do well coming into the community as a whole, and what we suggest they do. So, I want to start with a bit of a preamble here. Yes, Heresy can be expensive to play. We all know that. We all accept it. We're all willing participants in the price that is Heresy. That said, if you look at Heresy compared to other mainline GW games, for example, Age of Sigmar, Warhammer 40k,
Old World,
Old World, Heresy while in some ways looks like a more expensive initial purchase and buy-in, it is less expensive in the long run because your models aren't getting squatted nearly as often. You're not having to chase that meta. You're not having to constantly repurchase a new book to update your stuff that's then going to get nerfed by a GW. In fact, we don't even remember when the last actual effective fact was or points change was, other than stuff that's been dropped in books. So,
We do. So when I was re-listening to our old episodes,
uh-oh.
it came out like the end of last year. But yeah, I think you're hitting on a lot of the things that I have gravitated towards Heresy. We were talking a little bit before the uh, podcast started of all the older games that we've kind of gotten into and thrown money at because other people have played or not played or wanted to play. I can't count the number of games that I have thrown money basically into a pit because, oh, all my friends are going to play this and they don't. Or some of that ubiquity comes with Games Workshop themselves. They have
It
done a
does.
lot in the miniature gaming community. But because that exists, you have a lot of built-in uh, people to get to. So they have an online list of all of their shops that carry their stuff. You can usually find from there people that will play. You can go online and find Discord servers of people that play. You can use heresypodcast.com to find people, pot gamers in your area that want to play Toy Soldiers. There's a lot of ways to find people that play Heresy games or GW games in general versus other stuff. That being said, the other things you brought up, the squatting, Age of Sigmar lost what, half of the um, Sigmarine models?
Yeah, that was
That's pretty close, yeah. I mean, I think it may have been a little bit more than half in the replacement they just kind of went through, or
I know everything I'd
maybe.
bought for Age of Sigmar was gone. And
Okay, there you go.
I'd sold it a while ago. But yeah, everything I had at the time, because I was going to do a kind of a ranger battalion with all the bird guys and all the scouts and everything. I was like, oh, this is going to be a real cool, fluffy army, even though I kind of hate their fluff. I was going with my way of stuff. And then I looked at that list. I was like, wow, it's a good thing I sold all that early.
There is that. Um, that is absolutely a kind of a thing.
GW is not the only people that does that, though, before everyone
No,
starts
no.
going off. I played War Machine for a long time, and as new editions came out, they didn't so much squat models as make them completely useless. That way you always had to buy the new and hot, or then they'd release a new model that made the old models good, so then you had to buy more of your old models and then another new model. Like it just kept going back and forth. So you really, this is kind of the problem with miniature wargaming, is you kind of have to pick the poison that you want. Heresy, while playing mainline Age of Darkness games, can be expensive. There are cheaper ways to play it. You can get into Zone Mortalis, you can get into Flow Grow Leagues. There's a bunch of different ways you can play this game for less money out of the gate than a 3,000 point army.
Yeah, there's a lot cheaper ways of getting into it than just automatically doing that.
Going on to other GW games versus Heresy, I honestly kind of quit all GW games that weren't Heresy. I'm kind of getting back into Old World um, after Fantasy got squatted, and I played a few games of 8th edition and just did not like the way that GW was taking the rules, especially lately with their constant meta chasing changes, where you can have the best army list ever one week, and then some great tournament goes on, or grand tournament goes on, and you didn't attend, but your army apparently got the first 5 places, and therefore you're going to get horrible rules for the next 3 releases.
Yeah, and that's one big thing that we don't really have to deal with is, unlike the other games for GW, I have yet to see a tournament in this edition, and I'm glad of that. I've seen lots of events, but I've never seen a single actual full-up tournament, which means you're not worrying about placing in tournament play. You're worrying about the aesthetics of your army, how your game goes, and how cool everything is that you're actually getting to go and do these things with your hobby and that part. Yes, it doesn't quite work for the face smash um, go out there and play competitively as well as like 40K or Age of Sigmar does. But in my mind, that's a bonus.
Yeah. The other thing is, even though I don't play it, because I've liked a lot of gaming content, Instagram and Facebook have been recommending a lot of GW meme videos, and it seems like Kill Team, the latest release of that, where they've tried to streamline everything together by releasing all of the army or all of the units at once, along with brand new updated rules for everybody. We all know GW's usual tendency when they release everything at once. It seems that 3 or 4 armies are the poster child of people, and the other ones kind of are stuff that you don't want to work on.
Yeah.
The old adage in 3rd and 4th edition was, if a unit has 5 options, 3 of them will suck. 1 of them is okay, and 1 of them is the obvious take. Expand that to army choices, and it seems like this could just be what I've seen online. It's like Necrons are completely unbeatable resurrection hordes, which it might fit the fluff, but you don't definitely want to play against that. So you have to take into the fact that everyone is really pulling from the same pool of units for the most part in Heresy. That helps a lot with the game balance. You may have certain legions that have better Legion rules versus some legions that don't have as good Legion rules. You've got rights of war that are better than other rights of war, but at the end of the day, you're all pulling from tactical Marines, from Devastator, or from heavy support Marines, from other stuff. So there's a lot of the balancing is done in the fact that everyone has the same core unit.
Yeah, that is one thing that's also there is primarily, I mean, if you just look at it as Marines versus there's some Dark Mech, there's Custodes, there's regular mech, there's the Sisters of Silence, and there's the humans that are running around everywhere. It is a Marine-centric game. As much just like 40K is, there's not all the Xenos races in 30K. So if you are sitting there and you get your guys together and you've got your army built and you haven't painted it yet, it is Marine-centric. So you can sit there and say, I've tried a couple test games before I committed to painting these guys and decided that I did not like playing as the Blood Angels. I think I want to try maybe playing them as Iron Hands instead. Generic Marines are generic Marines. You can sub them in, swap them over before you put the paint on them, and with very little work, they'll work for whatever army you want to do. And since we haven't had scale changes like 40K has, for the most part, if you can acquire some of the older regular Marines, like from the 5th edition boxes, 6th edition boxes, the Betrayal at Calf box, Burning a Prospero box, they're all going to be just fine once you put them on a base and they have them on the table. They're going to look fine. There's not going to be any obvious difference between them as opposed to them for Firstborn versus Primaris or something like that.
Right. Well, I mean, there is. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Jamie. You got it.
There is a little size creep on some of the newer models, but it's not as bad as it is in 40K, where the Primaris are like literally like a third of a Space Marine taller than a regular Marine.
It's also not a totally different armor style that looks to where it looks glaring comparing one to another.
No, I agree.
Yeah, or the fact that Terminators for a long time were completely out of scale. Our Terminators are a little off, but they're not that bad. And like Duncan was saying, I personally don't like using more current marks of armor. Anything past 5 or anything past 5 is pretty out to me. I don't even like putting 6 in my stuff except for the inductee that I use. But I wouldn't throw someone out of a game for putting down Mark 7 models.
Oh God, no. God, no, I wouldn't. I mean, if you sit there and you take some of the quote unquote modern Firstborn models from however many editions and you throw them on the table, you just tell me that it's Mark whatever, fine. Does not bother me. They look like the right Marines. They look like the right style. Throw them down.
Too. And the thing is with those, because everything's basically gone to Primaris, you can get those armies cheap secondhand too.
You absolutely can. You can pick them up on eBay or in trade groups for a lot less than you think. I would honestly say you can probably acquire a 3,000 point army for less than the cost of an actual box for getting into 30K these days. If you
Yeah.
go scour the trade groups and eBay for models that people no longer are using.
Yeah, and most acrylic paint, which is what most people are going to be using, you can strip off with isopropyl alcohol and a little elbow grease
Our
with some
simple
brush
green.
cleaning. Yeah.
Yep.
Simple green can melt plastic if you leave it in there for more than a few hours.
Purple power does.
Isopropyl alcohol will only do bad things to resin. So
Yeah.
everything has its goods and bads. I would say test a model and then test a few models, because back in the day I tested a model and it was fine for a day, and then I threw a whole army in, and the whole army destroyed, except for that test model was still fine. And I guess that guy was just really resilient. I don't understand it.
He was the one survivor.
I will say the Purple Power or Castrol Super Clean or whatever they call it is the other name for it. LA Totally Awesome also won't melt plastic or resin. So
yeah, isopropyl is really easy to get.
The other ones you can get at like Dollar General and like Walmart. It's not like super hard to get, but
yeah, nothing we're listing is hard to get. Obviously, if you're younger, even if you're not younger, read all the warning labels.
Yeah.
Don't drink any of it.
No matter how good it may smell, just like the paint, don't eat the paint.
Don't eat the paint.
And even if you don't think you need gloves or precautionary things like that,
gloves.
at least get gloves.
Yep.
Our friend Josh.
Oh my lord! Yeah,
one
he
day
his fingertips.
Ripped off his whole hand.
Yeah,
the bottom of his hand, because he was trying to get some stuff done quick and didn't think about it and combined two chemicals that he wasn't thinking about, and it went bad.
They changed the chemical, the solvent on him.
Yeah, and he was wearing gloves, and it leaked through the gloves and ate most of the fleshy part of his hand. Luckily, he has recovered. Thank God.
Yep. It took him like 6 months.
Yeah, that was very touch and go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I've done some damage to my skin from that stuff. Isopropyl alcohol, the worst thing it's done to me is it stripped the ultrasonic stripper that I use. All the paint has come off the paint stripper.
Nice.
I'm not even surprised by that, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, just I think the easiest way to put it, and it kind of makes sense, is be careful with your hobbying on that, but take a look around and see what you can find that will actually, if you're coming into Heresy, that is stuff that you can appropriate from other locations and other bits that will be absolutely Heresy appropriate, and no one will give you a single bit of guff over. Because it's out there and it's everywhere. And Lord knows I've done it for my entire Iron Warriors army is mostly kit bashed together to make a Heresy army.
Oh, I mean, like some of the White Scars are Toys for Tots army or whatever we're gonna call it, parody army.
Yeah.
The last squad I did was bikes, and they're totally kit. Like, I'm not talking jet bikes; they're like Outrider bikes. They're totally kit bashed. Like every part is from a different, like either GW or Forge World kit, essentially, and they look Frankenstein right now because they don't have any primer on them. But like, once they're painted, you're not going to be able to tell the difference.
Yeah, my first batch of Marines were from me casting and kit bashing.
Yeah,
pretty much everything that was out at the time. So I've got mixes of Mark 4, 5, some 6 legs, and then the arms come from everywhere, and everything comes from everywhere. Honestly, for that first
my
80
my
Marines,
Nightmare army was the same way. It's a mix of the old Forge World resins, the Prospero and Calth plastics, and same thing vehicle wise. Old rhinos. Like I'm saying old. I'm saying like what we call Mars pattern rhinos that have been
all my vehicles are that. Yeah, all my vehicles are Mars pattern.
Yeah, and same thing with your Predators too.
Yeah,
But
I use the 2B turrets that Forge World put out, but yeah, everything I have is current. You walk into a GW shop and it says 40K on the box, and that's what I use.
And it works. I mean, that's kind of the thing.
Yeah, no one has said anything about it. No one has ever given me guff about it. It's that's what I love about Heresy. It's always really the person slinging the dice is the person you have to prove yourself to, and that's yourself.
Yep. And we're all going to sit here and be able to share horror stories of, and this is part of why I think that this community is a lot more welcoming community. All of us have stories of going to um, our own tournaments or events when we were first or still in 40K. And it's a lot of trying hard. It's a lot of stressing about lists, building up to what stuff's going to be happening, finalizing your list a month ahead of time because you don't know what's going to get changed, what's going to get altered by GW in the month leading up to that before whatever event's cutoff date. And then practicing gaming against a whole bunch of trying hard. And that doesn't really lead to a lot of fun. That leads to a lot of stressing over your actual hobby. Whereas, yes, I'm stressing personally about getting stuff done for Adepticon, but I've had the list and I've just been lazy in some ways about getting bits of it done.
You're also having to like plan events now too.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I'm also planning events for Adepticon, so
you're
I'm juggling a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm not stressing and adding distress to myself. I'm adding eustress, which is the productive stress, not the destructive stress. So that's kind of the one thing about the community is we're a lot more opening, a lot more friendly. As John mentioned, you can find people who love everything about Heresy, and you will find they are some of the most welcoming gamers you'll ever meet. Um, Jack and I have known one another for 20 plus years. I've known John for now about 10. I've known Jamie for right about the same amount of time.
Yeah, I think I've known John since what 2010ish, maybe a little earlier than that. When I can't remember when we first met at the event in Memphis.
That was, oh God.
The calm, whatever they call it, the big wah. You
Yeah.
remember that?
Yeah, I remember that, and then I remember we were talking online before that too. So yeah, I don't know any longer than Joel, and Joel damn near lives at my house.
Yeah, like I've known John probably. Yeah, I think I met John. Let's say closer to 2007, 8ish. Let's say.
Yeah, because I was still working at the hobby shop.
Yeah, and then like I've known our friend of show Brian, maybe 2010 around there. So like, yeah. I mean, I've got a couple other friends that are out of the country, like in England, that I've known just as long as well too. So that are
Yeah,
in
I've
hobby.
never made friends that last this long off of other games. Like I've
Yeah.
got some 40K quote unquote friends that I still run into at hobby shops,
Bingo.
and they're still chasing that dragon. They're still playing 40K and doing things. And I talk to them about Heresy, and every time they come into the hobby shop and see me playing Heresy, like, oh, hi John, you look like you're having fun. And that's always the way they say it. Like it's like they can see the thing that they miss, but they don't want either they don't want to make the leap into Heresy, or
A lot of times it's just
they
they're
can't get
not
rid of
ready
that
to give
competitive
up the
spirit.
competitive edge.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep, and I've encountered that myself because when I first came over from competitive 40K, I was Heresy's here. I'll come play a game or two or three or an event just because I have a Heresy army and I'm playing for 40K and I like the idea.
Yep.
And then it was eye-opening of the stress of the big 40K giant GT at Adepticon for the singles, and then the stress of that for the team event as well. And I was like, I am not having fun in these games at all.
Yeah,
I'm not having fun in this event. I'm not having fun in a single game. Even if I'm beating the absolute dog shit out of somebody else, I am doing it and not having fun. I'm just doing it by rote because this is what I've put all this time and money into doing.
Yeah, my best tournament placing was 5th edition guard. I remember having to write because it was competitive, and so there was like no take backs, even if you hadn't quite technically done the thing you were supposed to not take back yet. So I had to write up and down each arm. Remember to give your orders at the
Yeah.
big wall thing that Jamie and I were talking about. Because if I went to point to a model to shoot, because I was entering the shooting phase, I missed the order step, and I had judges called on me for that.
Yep, I remember
Well,
orders in 5th edition, unfortunately.
yeah, so I had to do. That was probably the best I'd ever placed, and I was top 10 in that event. And I studied my butt off because I was still at the hobby shop. We got the pre-order guard codex. I built the list before the book came out, modeled it the whole time, used old armies that I had and built up new stuff. And I worked my butt off for that. Sleepless nights and everything because I was still in my early 20s and could do that. And
Did you have fun?
Not really, because the guy that I played last game had bought the 40K radio dice from Chessex, and they'd screwed up the shipping, and so some dice had the symbol on ones and some had them on sixes.
Yep,
And
I
he
remember
was,
that.
and so he was playing them. He knew he was wrong, but because every time he'd roll dice, he'd go back through his dice quickly, and then I noticed, I was like, what? And I brought it to a judge, like, oh, it's the last round, no one cares. I was like, y'all should have, like, 40K radio called this out at the beginning of the event. Y'all should have gone through and double checked everything.
Yep.
Like that event started to sour me, and then the event that finally killed it was the last Bulls Con that I went to when they were still called that. I played a guy. We were like table 55 out of 70. Last game, low table. And I walked up, shook his hand. I was like, dude, we're not going anywhere. Let's just play to have fun. And he argued about every template placement, everything through the thing. And he just did not want to give up. And so I said, okay, if we're going to play that way, I'm going to rules lawyer everything. And that's probably the worst game of my life. But, you push John too far, he's going to flip out. That's what I'm saying. So, but no, those were not fun. Those weren't games. They were like endurance matches.
Yep. And you came away afterwards feeling miserable, no matter how well you did. Myself and Jack and our friend Betty. No, actually, I don't think Jack and Betty were on this team. So I played on a team in 5th edition of the team tournament at Adepticon, and our team placed 4th. Last year it was at not the current or the last Milwaukee or the last Chicago hotel, but the other hotel, and we placed 4th. And we did it with wolves and wolves and wolves and wolves and wolves, and we were tearing things up. But it was so stressful afterwards that I had no idea if I had fun whatsoever. I couldn't even remember how my games went at the end of the end of the team tournament because of how stressed out everything had made all of us.
I
We
would
had
leave
done really
events
well, but it
and
wasn't
think,
even fun.
yeah, I would leave events, go back to work, and think I need a new vacation from my vacation because I was so stressed out.
Exactly.
Whereas now I leave work and go back from vacation thinking I need a new vacation so I can work on all the cool shit I want to do.
Exactly. And that's the entire thing about it. You're not sitting there stressed out about it at all in current 30K. Yes, you can choose to play a tryhard as tryhard as you can. More power to you if that's the way that you want to play 30K. Most people don't. Most people, for us, this is a labor of love. This is our hobby. This is what we do to de-stress and to have fun. And I promise you, if you go to a Heresy event, almost every single person there is winning a game or losing a game, is having fun, is smiling, is laughing, is cutting up, and having a grand time. And you can actually walk through the Heresy Hall of the Adepticon, as people have done for years now, and compare the Heresy Hall versus the 40K Hall. And I'm not trying to bag on anybody or make negative comments about anything, but the atmosphere from tournament play to the Heresy Hall is so raggedly different, it's not funny. So
Yeah.
These two tables I'm working on for Adepticon are going to be by far and away the most expensive, most in-depth tables that I've done. And for what I'm spending on just the Memorial Garden table, you're going to get probably a whole event's worth of terrain for a 40K event.
Yeah.
That's how, and I've had multiple people at the game store that we play at is all different types of war and board gamers. So they'll be playing American Civil War a couple tables over, and then another room they'll be playing World War II. So those guys will all come out and just gawk at our terrain and stuff. And man, you guys, everything on y'all tables are on point. Models, the terrain, the camaraderie. I've seen old, grown men that are in there. Well, God, we're grown. What am I saying? The people in their 70s and 80s that have been playing games for, when we were little, that come up and that you can see that they miss that. They miss that excitement when they're playing the games that they're playing.
Yep. And that's a giant part of it. We play to have fun. If you're not having fun in your games and you're not having fun at your events, what are you doing wrong?
Yep.
And I'll be honest, I cannot tell you the last time, win, lose, draw, or whatever, in playing a Heresy game or a Heresy event, that I was not enjoying myself no matter what. I can tell you I had a not so fun game at Adepticon this past year, but I had my partner Jack with me. We were both having a good time no matter how stuff was going, and we had fun, and we ended up enjoying the game, and we laugh about it today. I can't tell you the last time I laughed about a 40K game.
I've been playing Heresy for roughly 9 years because I started about when I met Christina, and I can count on one hand the number of bad Heresy games I've had.
I've probably seen 2 of them.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
pretty
you
sure I can count the same.
and not games where it's like my line list doesn't work or the dice hate me, but like games where I'm just like I hate this person across the table. And I
can't even say that.
can't count the number of times. I've had 2 of those. 2 of those where I'm like, this guy really wants this game for some reason.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's if I can't go the other way with 40K. I can't remember the number of games where I had that wasn't the exact thing where it was like, okay, I'm fighting for my life basically on the tabletop.
Yeah, I can say when I used to play 40K in team events and tournaments, I've actually had more people throw a fit, literally pick up handfuls of dice and launch them across the convention hall because their dice roll went bad. I've never seen that in Heresy ever.
Or throwing models back into the case because they died.
Yeah, destroying their stuff because it didn't work out for them or whatever.
No, I mean, we all understand. Look, none of us are young gamers. We've all been doing this for years. And most people coming into Heresy are coming in for similar reasons. They're 40K people, they've played whatever, and they want to kind of recapture that fun that they remember from when they first got started. And you don't want the stress of the guy throwing dice around the room because he rolled 3 1s when he needed 3 2s or what have you. We don't have that. We'll laugh at that. Be like, man, that sucks.
The funniest one of those I remember was a 40K game where this local guy always had rage problems, but it was hilarious in this instance because I was on his team and he threw them at me. Remember when land speeders took difficult terrain checks and could have mobilized themselves, but because they were skimmers, when they immobilized, they exploded?
Yeah.
Yes.
So he, for some reason, moved his land speeders up in this mission and parked them on a river, and all 3 of them died.
Yep, that I would sit there and
that
laugh.
happens. Yeah, he got so mad he picked his dice up and just chunked them across the room. The downside was I was his teammate, and so I was in the line of fire, but I hit the deck fast enough. So if I ever recommend you don't play someone at our local events, luckily he has Heresy. He's just never played it because it's not hyper competitive enough for him. Because he comes to events, he'll squash 2 people, and he's like, okay, and then walks on.
That's kind of the one thing that I love about Heresy is that we don't deal with that.
Yep.
Jack, we've all kind of talked around this a little bit. You got anything you want to input on this one?
No, I think you've all covered it very, very thoroughly.
Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, I'm not
Jack
gonna.
was tangentially involved through all your stories.
Jack is heavily involved in most of my stories with Adepticon, either willingly or unwillingly, and similarly with other events that we've both gone to.
Well, like, this looking back on stuff, my last 40K tournament was teams at Adepticon, and that was the year where 2 boaters fell off of scouts that I had, and I about lost my shit on you and Betty because of 2 boaters. So that tells you the mental space that I was in.
Yep.
For that game, because I was losing my shit over 2 40K style boaters that I had who knows how many at home in a bits box.
Yep.
Yeah. I will say that the year that you all made 4th in the team tournament, you, Hoskins,
Betty, it was myself, Hoskins, Seth.
It wasn't Seth and Betty, because that was a year that you all decided to be uber competitor. You, Mike, Will, and Big Betty.
No,
because I don't remember his name.
I wasn't on that team.
Well,
the year we did that, we had, it wasn't Betty. It was myself, Connor, Mike. Oh, sorry, not Mike, but Wooten, James Wooten, and Seth.
No, it wasn't Seth, because I had Seth, because me, Betty, and Seth got kicked off the team.
Was that what it was?
Yep.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, but we did the whole competitive thing with the Wolves because that was James's idea. So, that's ridiculously not fun.
Yeah, that's what competitive does. You kick your friends off of teams when you're trying to sit there and have fun.
Even the 40K events that I went to that were billed as not competitive, I remember getting into an argument about a guy who didn't want to. I immobilized his Valkyries, and he didn't want to take them off the flight stand, even though that was the rules for the event. And he was throwing a giant itch fit about it. Like, even when it's not hyper competitive 40K, it ends up being that way because it just brings out that in people.
It does. I remember also Jack being one of them who went to the last 5th edition ATC tournament that he and I were both involved in.
I was so tired that day. I was so done.
Yeah. That was hot and in the mall beneath the skylights, and we had all been drinking the night before.
I peed on somebody's door handle on their car because they parked too close to my truck.
That's a fair statement. And then you blew the tire on the way back.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most fun that we had that entire event was the drive back when Betty and Seth both jumped in the truck with us because they didn't want to ride with Hoskins. Realistically, I think that was the most fun we had.
Well, they were waiting there to the bitter end, and I'm like, we didn't win anything. Daddy wants to go home. Daddy's tired. Daddy's over the shit.
Yep.
It was the last uber competitive 5th edition, and I spent the whole entire weekend getting my balls pushed in or pushing in people's balls and having to rule lawyer and fight and scrap and this be a miserable human being. And the LITs were not making it feel any better.
No, the bourbon I was drinking did not help. And when the bourbon that I was drinking in a tournament was not helping me feel better or have fun, something is wrong. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
come play Heresy. We're not competitive for the most part. The community is not dickish at all. We're welcoming, we're friendly, and we're glad to have you. And hopefully, some of what we've talked about tonight can actually help encourage people to come play Heresy. Anybody else got anything else to add?
Negative
Anything
Ghost
at this
Rider.
point? Anything at this point that we haven't discussed?
There's
No.
Go ahead, Jamie.
no, I was gonna say. I mean, there's if you all have concerns about like trying to get in Heresy or whatever, and you want information or advice, post up or in the Discord or on our Facebook page, and we'll be happy to get in contact with you and kind of walk you through it.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, go ahead,
I've
John.
also for local events, if people want to just dip their toe in and haven't bought anything, and I know you guys are the same way, you'll loan out stuff for people
Yep.
if they just want to try a game or two, or if they just need a helping hand. We've got guys in all of our events locally that are more than happy to not just loan out models, but sit with you and play the game. Explain why you're doing things or what's going on there. If I've met tons of people that are kind of curious about the game, but more want to nerd out about the lore, and that's the other thing that you'll find a lot in the Heresy community is the people that play the game not only play the game, but they know so much about the history and why this happened and what that led to, that they could just go on for hours and hours without having to just play the game. A lot of the 40K guys that I've met are in it for the game, and they just kind of tangentially know some of the lore.
Yeah.
I know I've lent my army out to people even when I've been out of town, like friends that have come in and needed something to play with other people. And I know like Blake and Christopher, friends of the show, they're very big into walking people through intro games and helping them get better at playing and getting more familiar with stuff. That's one of the big things with the Alabama Heresy group here is that they're very encouraging, trying to get people more familiar and more accustomed just to playing and getting people that are 40, let's call them 40K curious. When they see people playing Heresy, they're like, "What's this?" And they're like, "Well, this is Heresy," and walk them through it and stuff like that. And a lot of times they end up coming and trying it out. So not to say that we're
Look, we're not saying that we're better than anybody.
no, not at all.
What we're saying is that we feel the Heresy community, ourselves included, is more welcoming to new coming gamers than most other communities out there. And right now, at the beginning of 2025, it's really a great time to come join us. Make that your resolution.
There's this year I think there's going to be good things happening. So
Yeah, I believe so too. I believe so, not just from GW down the pipeline, but I know we ourselves have a lot of stuff that we have planned to work out for the Heresy community as well. There's a lot of really good events that are coming up.
Yep.
The LVO is about to hit. We've got the Bama Heresy group has got an event next weekend that's getting ready to be a huge hit.
As long as
We've got
Mother Nature doesn't just cancel it.
Yep.
We've got two events coming up here in Texas, one on the 18th in Tyler, and then one I'm running on the 25th.
Yep. We've got
And then from
Adepticon
then on,
tickets
we're
go on
doing
sale
every
next
third
week.
Wednesday. Yep.
We've got Adepticon and the events that we ourselves are running up there, and the events that our friends over with Ferrix are running.
Yep.
We've got Ferrix's events that are running around the nation in multiple places, multiple times this year. I know that there's talk of a possible Kentucky Heresy event that I've had with a personal friend of myself and Jack, little Andy Cox. So we'll see what goes on there. There's the Indiana Heresy group that's holding something 4 times a year. There is Nova that's doing Heresy. I mean, this is a great time to come into Heresy, test the waters, see if you like it, and see how welcoming the community is. It really is.
I know there's some also some event. There's an event coming up in North Florida too that looked interesting. I'll have to get the rules and everything. It's
There
all
we go.
it's not a straight normal like point total thing. It's a
A narrative thing.
a narrative type event.
Makes sense.
So,
And I also know that that's just us talking about things in the United States. That
Yep.
doesn't discuss anything about the stuff going on in Canada. Arthur Alex is up there doing stuff. There's Edmonton people up there doing stuff. There's other Canadians up there doing stuff that are really good. There's a whole bunch of people doing stuff in Australia. There's a whole bunch of people doing stuff over in England and in mainline Europe.
the
And I
Sweden
guarantee it, yes, Sweden. God, they are going crazy with it. And if you look at it all as a whole, the communities around Heresy are so much more fun, so much more involved. People are literally taking years to work on an individual army to get it as perfect as they can. Because this is for them, their hobby, their labor of love, and what they love to do. So take a chance. Dive on in. Come join us. I promise, if you're not happy with Heresy, someone here will happily take your stuff off your hands, will wave goodbye, and will welcome you back when you want to come back. Because I stand by this being the best gaming community out there.
Or we'll lend you another army to try out to see if you could find something else you may like.
That's true.
Because I know one person in particular that has a lot of non-marine armies that may be on the show. So,
Yep, that's Jack.
that's
Wait, what?
Yep, that's Jack.
Just Jack.
Just Jack. All the rest of us play nothing but Marines. Jack is the only person who plays Solar Ox, and he plays them religiously. And he has them painted up just like G.I. Joe members. Not Cobra members, only G.I. Joe guys.
Only G.I. Joe.
Oh my god. I hate you all. Hate you all so much.
I know. That's one of my
You
favorite
got my
parts
hopes
of
up
it.
the other day, Jack, when as Jamie was finding the Sword of Omens STL and then said it wasn't going to work for printing it off.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. How's your Decepticon Black Shield army
Black
coming along?
Shields. It's in the planning stages.
Not Gundam, but Decepticon.
Actually had a lot of stuff for Black Shields. I was gonna do kind of what became the Charcharodons, and then when everyone seems to be doing that, I was looking at like what became the Fire Wasp and the Legion of the Damned and all the different ways that could go. So I had a bunch of the Knight decal feet has this like skeletal Aquila, and a whole bunch of the Legion of the Damned models are using older marks of armor. So I had a whole bunch of stuff in a drawer full of those plans for that type of stuff.
Yep.
Oh, I had the exact same idea, and then when I saw everybody else doing it, I was like, well, crap.
Yep.
I blame Duncan.
I will take that blame because I never wanted to do Carcharodons. I never wanted to do Space Sharks. Not even once.
I've got trays of them sitting right here if anybody wants them.
Jack has trays of them sitting in the house too.
I do. It makes me sad. So we talked about how great it is over in Heresy, how easy it is to get into it. What resources can we point people towards to look into it?
Well, first, I would say heresypodcast.com.
Heresypodcast.com?
Heresypodcast.com. It has a link to our Discord.
Discord.
It has a link to our Discord. It has a link to our Facebook group. It has link to merch that if you're just coming in, you can take a look at. It's cool. It's neat. Shirts and hoodies are available. But the important part is you can find your way here and you can listen to us and we can point you in the right direction. We can tell you what we think is cool and we think you might enjoy getting into. And from
I mean,
there,
some of our episodes go all the way into starting out with just the Age of Darkness box,
yep,
or how to do conversions of consoles and why you should take certain ones over others. We've
yep,
done a lot of building blocks of army discussions in the past, and all of our episodes are still available on YouTube.
they are.
And we've also, we've gone over kind of intro armies and stuff, and how to get the most out of like those the starter boxes, and how to maximize that, and where to get stuff. Also, I'm just looking right now. It looks like all the facts, erratica, additional rules, all that kind of stuff for Heresy. Everything was, the last time it was updated was September 17th of 24 for everything.
That was the new website launch for
Yep.
download section.
There was
there
one
wasn't
on the
technically
16th,
updates.
but yeah, I mean, like the newest stuff would have been like the AdMech or the, I think it would be the AdMech stuff. But so there was like a couple stealth updates that they never really announced for errata, I think, if I remember correctly before that. But it was like just minor verbiage type stuff, nothing like earth shattering. So
And some in I would encourage everybody not to get their information all from the same source. So YouTube is always a good source for people. There are plenty of YouTube channels that will break in how to do 30K. There is Far East Wargaming. There
Our
is
friends at Age of Darkness
Age of Darkness.
podcast.
Yep.
Trying to think of the video I just got done watching earlier today. Heresy Era. His voice is very relaxing, soothing almost, and he does a fairly decent job with the explaining how to paint. Everything is brushwork, which is the easiest way to start. Start in. So he's a good one that I just came across.
There's one I've been watching for kind of refreshing myself on some of the Mechanicum stuff as I start looking to build in that army in the new year. Horace Hearsay. He stopped producing episodes almost a year ago, but a lot of the Mechanicum stuff hasn't changed since that book came out, so it's good to still listen to some of that stuff. And again, a lot of the Marine stuff hasn't changed since release 2 years ago, so all that information is still good to figure out which Terminator is best for which Legion, or which one goes best where. A lot of that stuff is still very pertinent.
Yep. And I'm going to say this about Facebook. Facebook has a lot of different heresy groups. Most of them are very busy. I'm not going to tell you which ones to join, which ones not to join. Do your own research there, but there's a lot of different heresy groups that you can find online and hop into and find a lot of guidance and a lot of questions that people have asked and answered before. You'll also find a lot of really inspirational pictures of stuff people are working on that will sit there and make you go, "Oh my God."
The Necromunda group has me spending too much money on terrain.
I hate to say this, but the 40K or the 30K World Eaters group, every time I go in there and I look at people's custom Praetors or custom champions, I'm just like, Mother of God, I feel like I'm an amateur at best. Jesus.
Or I just built one of those. I don't need a second or third.
But God, do I want one? Yeah, that's another good way of putting it. There's a lot of resources out there. Do your own research, find your own stuff, but we promise you, it's fun. The research is half the fun of the hobby.
Yeah, and we can get you started. Like Jack and Duncan have said, our Discord has a lot of resources for painting and hobby, and pointing you in the directions of other stuff.
Also, our weekly hobby hangout too. We have plenty of very talented artistes that can help you out live, during the week. And I will say I've been kind of on a kick this week. I'm actually trying to paint at least an hour a day. I've been getting in the Discord, even if other people aren't on there, I'll get into Discord just in case somebody pops in and wants to talk. I'm going to try and keep it up as long as I can. Just even it's only an hour, that may be all I get to do hobby wise for the week or whatever, it's an hour or so a day, but eventually it'll get me speeding up my paint processes. So,
Yep. Anyway, gentlemen, does anyone have anything else they feel needs to be added?
No, I think we've talked about a lot of it, and I think that we should have Jamie take us out this time.
Sounds good. Jamie, you're up, sir.
about that. But I want to thank
Jamie, you know what to
everybody.
do.
What?
You know what to do, Jamie.
No, I don't. Want to thank everybody for listening to Accountability Buddies tonight. Thank you for putting up with all our antics for the past year. And my name's Jamie, and I'm saying goodnight.
And he's been
Jamie.
joined by Duncan.
Jamie, you should have done, hey, John, take us out of here.
Apparently.
Okay.
Oh, Lord.
All right, so everybody, thank you for joining us this 110th episode of the Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast. I'm John, and I've been joined by
Duncan.
Jack.
Jamie.
Remember to always stay accountable to yourselves, your buddies, and your hobby. And like Jamie said, we do appreciate everyone joining us through 2024 and before, and looking forward to what 2025 is going to bring us. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
There you go.
Like and subscribe, and see ya.